Welcome to Waffles Friends Work, a values-driven leadership and personal development podcast. I'm Kara.
And I'm Jency. We hope you find this podcast both thought-provoking and entertaining as we cover how we all show up for ourselves, in our relationships, and at work.
Since we're only moderately obsessed with shows like Parks and Recreation and Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
and can't stop reading material from Brene Brown and Adam Grant,
you'll get a mix of approaches to thinking about and becoming the person you want to be.
Yeah, that's enough. Let's do it.
Welcome back to Waffles Friends Work. I'm Kara, and I'm here with my co-host Jency, and today we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics, work.
It's one of your favorite topics because that's your...
Literally my Instagram handle, Kara Loves Work. Yes, okay, we do love work, but we especially like talking about like why we work, what work means for us. And I think today's topic, we're really going to get into why work matters so much to us and how we can actually do that effectively without burning ourselves out. So I think it's a well-timed conversation for me and maybe for a few of our listeners.
I think so too. I actually was having a conversation this week and I was talking about boundaries. As often, we are talking about boundaries and specifically about, I think it's Brene Brown, right? That said about boundaries and being the most generous you can with other people when you have healthy boundaries, and not to make it too expansive or to overuse that, but it's the same with work. So if we're feeling resentful or upset or frustrated with work, it could be work. It could be that your coworker is a jerk. It could be all those things, but it also could be something that you need to examine a little.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about boundaries with work, and we wanted especially today to talk about setting boundaries with work, which is actually really more of a self boundary, and then setting boundaries at work, which is a little bit more of like the relationships we have and the things that we do. But hopefully we're give you guys some good tools on how to have boundaries with work.
And like I mentioned before, and it's a similar call out, right? In the ways that we teach other people how we want to be treated by setting boundaries, we teach people at work how we want to be treated by setting boundaries. And by basically training them on things that we will and won't do when it comes to work. And obviously there's a huge amount of caveats on this because what we're talking about is like, I don't know. I don't want to say a normal 9 to 5. It could be shift work. Could be anything. We're not talking about people who are on call, who have to pick up Paige at 2 a.m. or things like that. We're talking about you clock in, you clock out. You have a choice in how you're responding. It's not, you don't have a contractual obligation to be available at all times. So just to get that out of the way.
That is a fair caveat. And that was actually going to be my first suggestion about boundaries at work. So we can come back to that. But like knowing what your actual job is and what your contractual obligations are and only doing those things. So let's circle back to that. But let's talk first about setting boundaries with work. So not just like what we mean by that, like what Jency's saying, like when you clock in, and when you clock out, you clock out. And that's probably the first thing we want to talk about is putting the boundaries around when you're on and when you're off. When are you on for work and what does that look like? And when do you shut it off? And my personal favorite is when you're taking your paid time off.
It is one of my biggest pet peeves. And I have actually coached people about this because if you are on paid time off, my assumption is that you are not available. So when you're popping into Slack and weighing in on things, when you're supposed to be out of the office, I'm confused. The team is confused. Clients are confused. Like selfishly from an internal perspective, if you are on PTO, I don't want to see you because it's confusing to me and my brain.
Well, and to your point of like, it is teaching people how to treat you, right? It's like, okay, this is a great example. So I was just remembering this week that there was a time when I went to the Philippines and I was very jet lagged and I had Wi-Fi and I had our team chat on my phone, like for work, and I was in it. And I was chatting with people and they were like, Kara, go away. And I was like, but you're my friends. Like, it's not even about like work things. Like, I just want to talk to you guys. And that's what I was like, okay, then you should text them. You shouldn't be chatting them on the work channels. Anyway, I have done some work since then and I don't do that anymore. But like that used to be, right? So the message I was sending was like, I'm still available. I am still available. You can still reach out to me. And then fast forward to, the next time I'm on vacation, and maybe I don't want that to be the thing, but when they're reaching out to me, I'm like, why are you reaching out to me? I'm on vacation. Well, I told them that it was okay because I did that last time I was on vacation.
Yeah. And I think there are obviously there are exceptions and there are exclusions, and I do this when I go on vacation because some of the things that I do are critical and some of the things that I do or only I know about or whatever it is. And so I will say to my team, well, actually I don't say to the whole team. I tell maybe one person, if you need me, text me.
Yep.
And that's it. Like but it's not blanket permission to reach out to me my whole vacation and talk to me. I'm not available. If you have problems not doing that, or you can't stay off Teams, or you can't stay off Slack, like I have literally taken those apps off my phone when I go on vacation. Just sign out of the email, sign out of all of it. So it's not, because if you're like, sometimes it's muscle memory, right? Like I do that. Like I'll flip through all my emails and it's like, no, not my work email. I don't want to look at that. So just sign out. Just sign out.
That was a great tip. So I think part of the reason that this is hard is it is a little bit of a switch that I have to flip. Like I do have friends at work and I do like it is muscle memory and that is just like a habit that I have that I want to check in. I want to be seen as available. I want to be helpful. So something that I've started to try to do, and I'm headed on vacation here in a couple weeks and I've already started prepping my team for, is documenting the things that they might need to reference while I'm gone. Where can you find this thing? Here's the status of my projects. Here's where you can find these things. And then yeah, if you've tried this and this and this and this and this, then you can reach out to me. Like, but trying to give them a couple of tools so they can fish while I'm gone, but also just like, I don't want to leave them hanging. Like, I don't want to be a crappy teammate that's like, well, you're stuck for the next 2 weeks while I'm gone. But I feel like if I do a better job of kind of prepping them for my absence, it's a little easier for me to actually check out for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that checking out piece and that training the team around you on what to expect when you're out is really important. We need to take those breaks. And there are a lot of studies about taking vacations and how long it takes your brain to like get out of work mode and actually get into vacation mode. And if you keep checking in with work, that timer keeps resetting and you're going to feel like you didn't take a vacation at all. And that would really suck.
Yeah, I was actually just reading this right here, Deep Work by Cal Newport. And while I'm not gonna sit here and say that, you know, Cal Newport has solved all of the world's problems because he figured out that when you work on some tasks like without any distractions that you do a better job. But there is a chapter in here about the importance of separating yourself from your work, including in those vacations and just, you know, at the end of the day, because it does let your brain fully rest, process the information that it has, move on, and it resets the burnout clock. Like the more that you shove work related tasks in your face, the more likely you are to burn yourself out. So yes, vacation is a big one, but I think it's equally important even just for like after work hours and on the weekends. Again, assuming that we're doing a typical 9 to 5. That being said, I mean, even with shift work and other kinds of work, there's times that you're not on. And how are you protecting that time? That's not necessarily paid time off, but like you're not work time. What are you doing?
You're not working. This is where I would make like, I'm going to stand on my soapbox for a little minute and be like, okay, hey, just because we can work from home doesn't mean that you should work when you're sick. So if you're sick, please turn off your computer and go back to bed and be sick. I don't care if you technically could work and you could technically sit and answer Slack messages. Please just go to bed because you will get better in one day instead of letting it drag on for 10 days of feeling crappy the whole time. Just please go to bed. I don't care. Just go to bed.
Gosh. I will say the hybrid work environment has made it so hard for me to take sick days. That is something I struggle.
Well, and I think we have done ourselves a little bit of a disservice there too, because I think we have expectations of each other and our team. Well, we work from home, so just wear your pajamas and turn your camera off and still come to the meeting. But you need to be sick. Be sick, please. Just take your damn sick day.
Take it. And maybe the way to think about it is like, if you did work in the office, would you just stay home? Because if you would, call it.
And I know it's different because you don't want to get other people sick and you're contagious, but like, I want you to get better. I don't want to hear you coughing on every call for the next 10 days. So please just stop. Just go to bed.
Also, one day, we can survive without you for one day.
So you're not that important.
You're not that important.
What are we going to do? We're going to shut it all down.
Yeah, we're going to shut it down. So this is something that I feel like I have established good expectations at my new job with, because my boss called me a couple weeks ago at like 5:15. And the first thing he said was, "It's after 5. Am I good? Like, is it okay if I talk to you right now?" And I was like, I'm still on my commute home. So yes. But I have tried really hard. I try to be available until 5, like very available. But yeah, I've set it up so that like my notifications on my phone don't alert me before 8 o'clock in the morning or after 5 at night.
I just don't have any notifications turned on at all for anything.
That's really good. I will say I like having notifications on because I'm away from my computer a lot when I'm actually like even in the office. And so it's good for me because I have time blindness. So if
That's
someone chats me, I'm
fair.
like, oh, yeah, I
That's
should go back to my
fair.
desk instead of just sitting here and chatting with you. So for me, it is better work-life balance, but I totally respect just not having. I don't have email notifications. I have my Slack notification, but I don't have my email notifications. Um, I don't check my emails outside of work hours. In fact, I don't check my emails within work hours, but that's a different story.
Key takeaway from this podcast on setting boundaries at work. Don't check your email at
Don't
work
check
or
your
at home,
email.
and don't turn on any notifications ever.
Okay, I check my email at work. I just have certain times that I check it. I don't have it so like it pops up notifications every time I get a new email because I'm easily distracted. So I check my email like 2 times in the morning and 2 times in the afternoon, and I try not to just have it always open because it's really hard for me to focus if I'm constantly getting distracted by the new email that comes in. But anyway, I just wanted to share that there's actually been research about the idea of the commute. And when we moved to the work from home environment, they found that there was a lot of success in something they were calling the virtual commute, where some people would like literally go ride their Peloton bike for 20 minutes in between working from their desk and going back to their like life, or taking a walk around the block, or doing something that just signaled to their body that it's time to turn the work off. And Cal Newport does talk about that in his book. He says to systemize a strict shutdown ritual. And he has one where he like goes through his whole task list and makes sure there's a plan for all of them, and then literally says out loud, shutdown complete, and then shuts his laptop. And that's his like end of day sign to himself that it's time to be done for the day. And while it's really, really cheesy, there's actually like legitimate research that it works, and people who have something to separate their day, even when they work from home, have better work-life balance and higher work satisfaction.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I get that. I think that there's been a lot of conversation about commute, and like I haven't had to commute in a million years, so I don't want to commute, and I don't want to talk about commuting. Like, don't ask me to do that. But
I
I
love my
also
commute.
like, I get that. Like, there's this like space to transition from work to home when you're in your car or on the train or on your bike or whatever. I just have never had that, so I don't know. I just leave my desk, but I understand why. I mean, I think back to like when my ex was in the hospital working, he needed the commute to like decompress after work and like listen to really loud music. And just before he got home to the chaos at home from the chaos at the hospital, it was like needed the buffer moment.
Yeah, I love my commute. So I commute in 2 or 3 days a week, and I take the train, which is my ideal scenario because I bring my Kindle and I just read my little garbage little book that is so like it's the easiest thing to consume. It's so simple and so easy and so lovely. And it's just my way of like, this is nobody needs me right now. My kids don't need me right now. Work doesn't need me right now. They
Yes,
might think they need me. They don't need
they
me right
don't.
now.
They can't get me anyway. So
So I'm just gonna sit here and read my book or play my stupid little matching game on my phone or scroll TikTok for 40 minutes. And that's my time. And that's fine.
that's
I
what
love
I'm
my
gonna do.
commute.
Yeah, I think. I mean, yeah,
And the people watching is A plus, let me tell you.
yeah. I think it would be a lot different if you were driving in traffic.
Oh, if I were driving, I would, because driving stresses me out really bad. So
You know,
down.
yeah, I think we've got a good handle on this, and maybe people don't have that problem shutting down at the end of the day. Like, I don't really have
I'm
the symptoms.
so happy for you. I've come a long way, but even at nighttime still my brain goes a little busy, and I have to remind myself like this is not a today problem to solve. Worrying about it right now is not going to actually change the outcomes, and there's so much more in your life than work, and
Well,
it's
work
okay.
anxiety is a different story. Work being done and like turning off work, yes. Turning off thinking about work, yeah. We have that conversation in my head a lot.
Fair enough.
But I do think that it's also worth talking about this last little bit that we have about finding things to do besides work.
Yeah, I think yeah. The other thing is if you're having a hard time turning off work, it might be because too much of your life is work, or maybe a strategy for you to use to like minimize how much that impacts your out of work time is to find different things to fill your life with that you do like and enjoy that are just not.
Yes, like hobbies.
What are those? Tell me about those, Jency. I'm just kidding. I have so many right now, but that's inspired by you because you've always been a hobbyist.
Yeah, I think having hobbies is my hobby. I was just thinking about that because I got some knitting projects out the other day and I was like, well, that was a hobby. I'm not sure I'm still into it, but they came
Yeah.
out.
My current one is watercolor painting. That's been a new,
I like it.
yeah, and it's very different for me because I am not like traditionally terribly artistic. I haven't been very, I'm not like a drawer or a colorer really. So this was a new space, but it's actually really fun.
Right? Amazing. The other thing that I was thinking about is, and this may be partially tangential, but something that I want to note. If you are getting to the end of the day and you don't have energy for hobbies and you don't have energy to go find other people and hang out and do things that you would like doing, and all you have energy to do is sit on the couch and watch Love is Blind and scroll TikTok. Speaking from experience, though, I don't
Like,
scroll TikTok, but yeah. But
no
that's
judgment.
every single day, week after week. That's what you have energy to do after work. It's time to re-examine your relationship with work and how much energy you're giving at work. Because you shouldn't be giving every moment that you have and every ounce of energy, like all of your spoons or all of your,
Forks.
bucket, anything that you have, however we want to quantify our energy or what we have to give. If you're giving that all away at work every day, day after day after day, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I do. I've gone on record before saying that I think my ideal work day would actually be like 10 to 8 or like 11 to 8 instead of 9 to 5 because I feel like those first couple hours in the morning are like my highest energy, best whatever. It's like if that's the time and energy I could give my family, that would be my ideal scenario because by the time evening rolls around, but because I can't necessarily just choose that to be my schedule, how can I put the boundaries around work and boundaries around how I show up at work during the day to kind of allocate and now I wish that there was a way to actually say like, okay, your highest energy time is now going to be in the evening. Like I can't actually do that, but finding those hobbies that kind of are re-energizing. Like I am a textbook extrovert. I like to be around people. Finding things in the evening that give a little bit more of that energy back that have people. My family is great, but and also friends outside of my house and getting out and doing things like that to try to kind of flip the energy scales a little bit so I don't spend it all in one wish. I wish it was like money where you could just be like, this is the energy unit I'm going to spend on this, but it doesn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, our brains and bodies don't work like that. And it's the same at work too for me because I am the most functional, creative, problem solving, motivated first thing in the morning. But because I am so far west in time zones, that is the only time I overlap with a bunch of people at work. So that's the time I have to have meetings when it's such a waste of my time to be sitting in meetings during that time. I should be sitting in meetings like after 2 p.m.
Yes, I did that in my last job. I scheduled all my one-on-ones to be that hour after lunch because energy starts to dip, you're getting a little tired, you just ate lunch, and I found one-on-ones really energizing. And I hope my team did too because they totally like they were on board. But it was a good way to kind of reset the afternoon a little bit, is trying to find those areas where the energy was dipping. Uh anyway, all of that is to say, I think that's a great way to set up how we wanted to talk about being mindful of where you set your boundaries at work. So even within work hours, when you are, whatever your job responsibility, contractual obligations are to do, how can you protect your peace and your energy and your time? Oh my gosh, your time actually at work and doing the things that you are actually supposed to do for your job.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to get through here. And I wish this didn't resonate with so many women, but it does because we've all been conditioned to be people pleasers and to take the responsibility for everyone around us and anything that they could ever feel and to make sure that no one is ever uncomfortable or hungry and that we always have fruit snacks and a banana and that no one is sad and everybody is just humming along. And we take that to the workplace all the time.
How many of us are momming or big sistering unintentionally our colleagues?
So many, so many. I like that you called it big sistering too, because yeah, that's so real. Though I did have one of my coworkers call me their work mom.
Ouch.
Mostly, and I will say that could have been offensive, but she was talking about how I coach her through setting boundaries and making good choices at work. So
Okay, you know what?
yeah,
I
actually,
respect that
I'll
then,
take
yeah.
that. I'll take that.
So I think I alluded to this at the top of the episode, but I think the first thing for me that's really helped kind of get boundaries is, I mean, so I work in learning and development. I talk a lot about organizational development. So I might get nerdy in this section, but the idea of role clarity, right? What is your job and what isn't your job? And what pieces of work have you just picked up because no one was doing them and you saw that no one was doing them and you could do them, especially as someone who is like maybe multi-passionate or neurodivergent, who is interested in a lot of different things and can do a lot of things. And you're just like, well, I can do that and I can do that and I can do that and I can do that. And then you're 6 months down the road and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do my actual job because I have to do all these other things that no one else knows how
Yeah,
to do.
or
Sorry,
that,
what?
you know, that
This
that
is
sort
that
of
movie? I
like
don't know what I'm talking about.
total big sister energy where it's like, you're not doing this right, so I'm going to do it for you and I'm going to do it the right way because
Yes.
this is a
Doing it wrong.
mess. You're doing it
wrong.
wrong. You know what? I think that's probably one of the things just in my life that letting go of that has given me so much energy back. That's not the way I would do that thing. That doesn't mean my way was right. So, and maybe
Yes, one of the best pieces of advice I got as a new leader was from my boss at the time. He was like, Kara, just because it's not the way you would do it doesn't make it wrong. And that has lived in my head rent free for like 10 years now.
just let them do it. Just let them do it.
If it's wrong, even if it's bad or if they legitimately fail, now don't set them up for failure, but like legitimately fail, they will learn something. And if you come in and rescue them, you know what they learn? That Kara will rescue you. Kara will pick up that piece. Kara will, I call it the Leslie Knope syndrome, which is funny because this podcast is Waffles, but I legitimately do call this the Leslie Knope syndrome. It's from the episode where they're camping. I've probably talked about this episode before. And she just like, she needs everybody to brainstorm a new idea. And they're like, just are like, Leslie, just tell us what we're going to do. Like, you know what the idea is. We're just going to do it. And she's like, but I don't have an idea because she has like trained the team to just do her idea every single time. I do that at work a lot.
Yeah.
I don't mean to. Yeah. I do it.
We do it at home. We do it to our kids. We do it to our spouses. We do it at work. Stop it. Stop it.
Doing it.
I think, though, literally the first step in that is understanding what your job description is. And if you have confusion about that, or you have confusion about your priorities or who should be doing what, ask questions. I run into this at work all the time from that perspective where people are doing other people's jobs or they're so overwhelmed. And I look at them and I'm like, why are you doing that?
Should I read that text that I just sent to you about how I am now a menace at work because this is what I keep asking everybody? Who asked you to do that? Why are you doing this? Why is this your job? What happens if this doesn't get done? Who should actually be doing this? That's me in all my meetings right now.
Yeah. Yep. And it's not that we don't want the work to get done. It's not that we're trying to like cause trouble or be inefficient or whatever. But I think there's a huge piece here about, actually, Kara and I talk about this a lot, is why isn't this organization moving forward? Why isn't our strategic plan happening? Why isn't da-da-da-da-da? It's because people are doing their own flipping jobs. They're doing everybody else's.
Yeah. And yeah, like why haven't I reached my goals yet this year? Because of this and this and this and like it's not because we're trying to like be obstinate or I mean I am trying to be a little sassy, but not like difficult to work with. But the more you overfunction to compensate for people's underfunctioning, the more the lines get blurrier and that concept of role clarity of like knowing what your job is gets fuzzier and fuzzier. And honestly, like your strategic impact and value decreases because you're no longer doing what you were hired to do and you do really, really well. You're like juggling all these other things and trying not to drop those.
Yeah. And to bring it back to your own energy and your own boundaries at work so that you can protect that when we're not operating in that space. At least this is true for me. I guess I can't say this for everybody, but I've seen it in other people. If we're not operating in that space where we feel like we have the most impact and why we're at the organization we are doing the thing that we thought we got hired to do, the further we stray from that, the more energy it takes, the more resentment builds, the more blah, 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 because that's not why I'm here. That's not what I came here to do. And all of a sudden I'm doing a completely different job and it's my own fault.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I recently started a new job and my number one piece of advice something I feel like I did really well and wish I'd just extended even a little bit longer was I did not volunteer for any recurring tasks, recurring bodies of work for a whole month. And I think everyone who's starting a new job should take that as a best practice because it's so easy when you're brand new. You're like, I have all this bandwidth. I can help with that. I can help with that. I can help with that. And then all of a sudden you've collected these recurring tasks that you didn't realize were going to actually become 75% of your body of work because you just volunteered to do them one time in your first month of employment. So I would extend it. I would extend it to 2 months. 3 months if you can swing it. And I'm not saying that
If
doesn't
no
mean you
one
can't
notices.
if no one notices. I'm not saying that doesn't mean you can't do things and volunteer for work. Just be mindful that you're not taking on a body of work and you are just taking on a few tasks or things like that so that you don't end up accidentally filling the space in your schedule with work that one, you weren't hired to do, and two, you don't even really like doing.
Yeah. And again, unfortunately for so many of us, we can do a lot of things. And this is another tangent that I won't go down, but so many of us have been trained to associate our value and worth with the things that we do, the ways that we contribute, the ways that we help other people. So when there's opportunities to help, that gives us a little jolt of I'm here and
Yep.
I belong here and I've earned this spot and I'm going to keep earning it because I can keep doing things. Oh my gosh, stop. Please stop.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because I work in a service organization, so like that's exacerbated like 100-fold because for a long time I thought my worth in a service organization in a learning function is just however I can help. Like if I can make their job easier somehow, then I'm adding value to the organization. And I learned the hard way that that's not actually value. That is just like people pleasing, like just me hoping people are happy. And there's a little bit of
I
like
like
perceived
you.
value in what I do, but like the strategic impact my team was having way less because we were just trying to help wherever we could. And let me tell you, people really are quick to offload tasks when you just say, hey, how can I help? They give you really garbage crap that nobody wants to do. That's why they're giving it to you to do. So I actually don't think it's a tangent because I think that's a big part of how we get to a place where boundaries at work get really messy is when you have tied your worth and your value to your productivity and like the tasks that you're completing at work. It gets harder to put those boundaries around what is your work and your relationships at work. Because if your value is tied to your work, now you also want people to see you as helpful and productive, and you want to be everybody's friend, and you want to be available. And now you have a different level of boundaries that's a little awkward to navigate with coworkers. So this one's hard for me because I do like to be friends with everyone.
I think that there's a difference between being friends and being friendly. And obviously, my situation is a lot different from yours because I work remotely and my nearest coworker is 2 hours away over Donner Pass. So it's not like I see them or have the opportunity to have outside of work friendships. Now, that's not saying that I don't. I mean, I have a couple people that I work with now and people that I've worked with in the past. So we text and we're on social media and da 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 da. So we're friends in some sense of that. But I do think that you end up in some tricky situations if you are becoming too friendly with your coworkers. And a lot of that comes from, and maybe that's just my position, but I have to have hard conversations with people about them doing their job and their performance and da 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 da. And when you are friends, those conversations are infinitely harder. Though it could go the other way, I guess, if you're friends, but people tend to not really like those conversations. So,
Yeah, I mean, having been in that situation, I mean, I had to lay people off that were my friends. Like that,
yeah, maybe you shouldn't have been their friends.
but like legitimately after I did that, I was like, I should not be friends with the people I work with. Like I can't do that again. That was so hard though. Like, and not to make it about me because it's not about me. Like that sucked for them. Like this person who you thought would have your back and blah, 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 like all these things. And so I was like, okay, then I'm just not gonna be friends with the people I work with anymore. And then I feel like I was living outside of my values because I do care about these people. And you're right, it was different, especially at that job because I worked with them every day. Like I was in office 4 days a week, 9 to 5. Like I am spending a lot of time very close to these people. So it felt really against my values to be like cold and like, nope, we're not going to have any relationship. So I actually think that's where boundaries have been a really good tool for me to like assess where do I need that line to be drawn? Because it's not that you can't be friends with your coworkers, but you need to be conscious of being able to do your job. So you always need to be able, wherever that line is for you. Like maybe it doesn't make it harder for you to have hard conversations if you know the person really well and you've built that level of trust. But the line should be as soon as it is difficult to do that, or it's impacting your ability to hold them accountable, or you're justifying their poor behavior because you know their whole backstory and all of those things, then that's where the boundary starts to need to be drawn, because you need to be able to do that, and your personal relationship can't supersede that.
And I think, at least for me, it gets tricky because I don't have any direct reports myself, but I am in a leadership role. And so a lot of the people at work I'm their superior in some way. Yeah, technically. And so it just can't get too casual because I have to remember that. And then they say things to me that they probably shouldn't say to me. And then we get in trouble because it's like, I can't tell you those things. I know that we're close and da 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 da, but sometimes people ask me questions that I can't answer. So I think it's tricky, but I think you made a good point about living inside your values. And I also think that you can be friendly at work without being overly, I don't know, sharing about your whole life and everything that's going on. And I don't know that that's necessarily best practice either, to have everybody know everything that's going on in your life at work.
I guess maybe my takeaway here is like, whatever you're doing, do it on purpose. Don't just like, I mean, I'm a natural oversharer, but like being conscious of that, like, okay, all right, where is that boundary, and making sure you're doing that instead of just going on autopilot. I think I've done a little bit of soul searching about that since we started talking about this. And it's like, I think sometimes I use sharing and maybe even oversharing. Maybe it's not oversharing, as an excuse, as a way to kind of evade accountability for something. Like if something's really, really hard, I want to share like the home situation. So then I have like this sympathy instead of like just owning that I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do. And so sometimes I feel like maybe I'm actually making an excuse out of this. So I just want to be intentional about how we're using like details about our lives and how we're building those relationships. And are they the appropriate relationships to be building with the appropriate people?
And I think the other side of that coin too is being respectful of other people's boundaries, because and this happens to me a lot actually, where I think people think I need to know more or I want to know more, and I don't. I mean, you can tell me if you want to, if you have stuff going on at home and you want to share with me what's going on, and you can confide in me, and that's fine. But you can literally just say to me, I've got some shit going on at home and it's rough and I just need some grace here, or whatever. I need these, whatever. Like, I don't need all the details. And if you don't want to share them with me, that's fine. And I know that there are other people who want to dig for those details and they want to know and they'll ask. And it's like, bro, they're not sharing with you on purpose and they don't have to share with you. It's none of your business. And people aren't being rude. They just don't want to tell their coworkers. Don't call everyone your friend.
Yeah.
If they're a coworker, call them a coworker. If they're your neighbor, they're your neighbor. Like, friends are something intentional and is a closer relationship, I think, than a lot of those things. So, worker relationship, some people want to keep that boundary,
you know, and
and
that's
they're
a good
allowed.
point. Because and I mean, we've talked before about how my husband and I are totally opposite humans, but that's the case for him. I mean, he's got a couple of coworkers and that he would probably call his friends that he's known for a long time, but like that it was like the weirdest concept to me for so long. Like, I don't think he invited any coworkers to our wedding, and that was like that was so weird to me, that he like spent so much time with these people and he was just like, no, they're my coworkers. They're not my friends. They're my coworkers. And I think, especially as women, we're kind of in a hard spot, because if we do want to have those boundaries, we can be seen as cold, or I don't want to be labeled as a bitch. But like that can happen to us, right? If we want to have our boundaries a little farther on the more professional line of the scale. But if you are overly sherry or whatever, then you're also like, you're not prioritizing your career. You're too emotional. Your family is too big of a priority. Like, you can't win however you want to draw the boundaries. So just find what makes sense for you and your values and put it there, because people will be mad no matter what.
That is true. And also be mindful of who you care if they think you're right. Like no offense to like a lot of people at work, but like, I don't care what you think. If you think I'm a bitch, that's okay with me. I can't worry about that. But like, I don't need my boss to think that I'm being nasty.
Well, and I think that's the other thing too, like who you have the relationship with and who you want to share with. Like, For me, I have a good relationship with my boss, and so I would feel comfortable sharing a few more of the things that were going on. But there are more people that I don't want them to know the details. So yeah, I think, but that's hard because again, people like I want everyone to like me. So the idea of anyone thinking that I'm a bitch is really hard for me.
Well, and
I don't like it.
I will go back to this and I'll say it again. I think that you can be friendly without being friends, and you can be nice to people at work without telling them that you got your period that day. Like, we can keep things to ourselves and still people will still think we're friendly. It's okay. It's okay. And I think if you want to read more about that and talk about transparency and what should be shared and da 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 in leadership specifically, then you should go read Brene Brown because she talks about that a lot.
Yeah, and actually, Kim Scott in her new book, Radical Respect, actually has some good examples of that and where you should put some of those boundaries. And one of them that she suggests and like really strongly recommends is to just never drink with your coworkers. Just don't do it.
What about weed? Just kidding.
Um,
Only same rule.
I was like, in California, it might be different. In Utah, I'm pretty sure it's a hard no. But like
Yeah.
things like that are just a couple of tactics. She's got some other good suggestions, but there are things like that that we don't really think about. And again, like just being intentional about where you want to draw that boundary. You know your limits. If you want to have a drink, whatever, just don't get hammered. I work in HR, guys. I've heard the worst stories.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that one. And to be careful with who you're spending time with out of work and the things that you're doing with them, because at the end of the day, they're still your coworker.
Yep.
And that can always come back and bite you in the ass.
Yes. Can also attest that that is a real thing. And just because you're outside of work and off of work property, that doesn't
Sounds
protect
so
you.
HRE.
Yep.
Here
Yep.
comes
Sorry.
our HR
Sorry.
rec.
Put my HR hat on for this part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that we think that people will always have our back and that people will do the thing that we would do, and that's just not true. So just be careful.
Yes.
Don't be like Leslie Knope and sleep with your boss. Bad idea.
Don't we have a couple of lessons from Leslie this episode, don't we? Don't sleep with your boss. Chris's rule is a good rule. It's a good rule. I've
It's a good
actually
rule.
seen when Mike Schur went on Amy Poehler's podcast just recently, they even said something about how they had to make that up to come up with some sort of like tension between Ben and Leslie about why they couldn't date. And I was like, actually, nope. I think that's very legitimate. And I would highly also recommend not getting into romantic relationships with people who are in higher levels of leadership. Kim Scott talks about that also in Radical Respect. The other lesson from Leslie that I think you and I wanted to talk about was when she gets put on suspension because of that relationship with Ben and she's under investigation and she's been asked not to work. And like Chris Traeger finds her in the middle of the night with a flash drive and she's like, I'm not working. I'm just attending meetings and checking in on things and anything else that would be needed of the deputy director to Parks and Rec department. And Chris Traeger's like, give me the flash drive, Leslie. And he has to like literally pry it out of her hands. Anyway, don't be that Leslie either. There's so many things we can learn from Leslie, but how to set boundaries is probably just
Well, she's always providing us with good examples of how not to behave.
okay. But you know who does show a good example of work boundaries with and at work from Parks and Rec? Donna Meagle. She's like, you don't know my
Yes.
business.
Yes.
And
Yes.
snitches get stitches. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't think anyone ever accuses her of being like bitchy or cold or what. I mean, that's her kind of her personality,
That's kind
but
of
it's
her
not like she's like, everyone's like, oh, no one knows anything about Donna. She's the worst. Like, she should tell us more about her whole life.
No. In fact, I mean, she rounds out the ensemble. Just think about your coworkers as an ensemble comedy cast and what maybe they're a little colder because they're the Donna of the group. Man, if I
Or the Ron.
Ron or the Roy
Like-
Kents.
Leslie like fries things out of that man. So
That's true. That's the man who really doesn't disclose information. Oh my gosh, when she finds out his birthday. Okay, sorry. I know we've talked about that episode before. Anyway, I think we've covered just about everything we wanted to talk about with boundaries with work. Start watching for those hot spots, for those indicators. Stand up for yourself, set the boundaries early, and make sure you're setting them in the place that lets you live your values the best way, both at work and outside of work.
yeah, and don't be afraid to ask for clarity or clarification around your roles and responsibility.
And document the crap. Document the crap. Hold on. I wanted to say this and I forgot to say this. If you're starting to put those boundaries in place and you're going to stop taking on the work that other people should be doing, document it. Send the email, have a paper trail, assign them the Jira, Asana, ClickUp, project management, whatever. Whatever. Just start CYAing a little bit that like they're going to come back to you. And like that's something that I know a lot of the people I work with that struggle with boundaries about like overfunctioning. They're like, but it's going to come back to me eventually. Great. Be prepared for that because when you start letting other people pick up the stuff you have before, they will get mad. So just be prepared to be like, and receipts. Okay, sorry. Tangent, but like,
well, and that's where like the clarification comes in. Clarify with your boss what your responsibilities are. What's my role in this project? What's the expectation for me to do in this blah, blah whatever it is? Get that in writing. And then just keep going. Just get it
and
all
if
in writing.
you're the boss, outline that clarification for yourself and then tell them. I guess that's assuming that you had a boss and this is a anyway. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Boundaries. Boundaries at work. There you go. That's the episode.
That's it.
The end. Cue exit music.